If there was one thing that you could do that could save your family, well, not save your family, but could help your family, help your neighborhood, help everybody that you know, and also if it grew to a good level, could also help the entire country, the entire world, would you do it? My name is Ryan. This is High Carb Regenerator. Welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about how my chair squeaks way too much. No, what I really wanted to talk about, so I saw this video the other day, and I'm going to link that right here. After I watched this video, I got to thinking, what if this wasn't a thing? What if something like 90% of the seeds weren't controlled by one, or three companies? Or what if, or a planting was by all these companies? What if we actually took this back? Now, we see a lot of farmland getting developed and turned into housing out in the suburbs, which I really am not that big a fan of. You can, if you have a bunch of grass, if you have a bunch of land, if it's not shaded, if it's in a decent area, you can grow your own gardens. And think about how much of your own food that you can grow. Like in a very small area, I grew 500 pounds of potatoes. Well, my dad did most of the work because I don't live on that side of town, but he and I, we dug them up and everything. I mean, 500 pounds of potatoes in a small area. Just think about how much food that you could grow yourself, even if you have a small yard. I mean, even not this house, because this house has a ridiculously big tree in the backyard, but the house I lived over into just to the west of here, I took the entire backyard. I had 14 or 15 tomato plants. I had potatoes. I had melons. I had peppers. I had, what else did I have? And then I did companion gardening, so I had the basil around everything. It was absolutely wonderful. I mean, we're supplied with food the entire summer once it started going, and if I had just done that with the potatoes, I could probably had enough potatoes in that size yard for the entire, winter. So think about, and we had so many tomatoes, we were giving them out. What else did we? Oh, we had gourds. We had zucchini, we had cucumber. I mean, I had everything, right? I didn't really even need to go to the grocery store other than to get bananas that entire growing season. So think about, and another thing, how many people go to their assembly line jobs and are just so happy that they're there, right? Most people are miserable at these jobs. Well, they bring that misery and they implant it into your food, because most of the food that's going to be in these plants that we would eat if you're vegan is really heavy in water. And what is water? Water takes on whatever emotion or whatever is going on at the time. And I'm going to put in here a little segment by a guy, David Wilcock, who talks about this.
This is where you see the sound vibration concept coming in. And again, the key is fluid dynamics. As I've said so many times, this particular image is what we see from the vibration of a liquid. And normally the liquid would just look white if you looked at it in this particular method. But then when you vibrate the liquid, it turns into this. Now, why is it doing that? It's doing that because there's particles in the liquid, and you vibrate it with a pure sound frequency like one of the white keys on the piano. And with just that alone, with nothing else except the white keys on the piano, these pure sound vibrations, you play the vibrations into this liquid, and the particles now arrange into this geometry. So this appeared to be, as I started to speculate on what...
He has a bunch of different things, but, there's some of his stuff I really like, and this in particular really affects food because, like, say an apple, for example, is what, like 70% water. Can you imagine how much of the negativity it might be absorbing, and then you eat it and you wonder why, well, I'm in such a bad mood after I eat this food. I mean, it could happen, right? I mean, I don't know if there's any real proof to that, but it makes a whole lot of sense to me. There was a Japanese scientist who studied just putting words on jars and then freezing them and just seeing how the different molecules form during freezing. And if I can find some pictures of that, I'll put that right here. So as you can see, this really has an effect on water. Like, so if you're eating stuff like potatoes or so much water, when you cut up to open, if you got a good potato, I mean, there's just so much water there. And when you get real potatoes, the skin's nice and flaky. I mean, they're so much better. That's when I don't take the skin off. They're so much better than when you get even potatoes. The potatoes that I get, the 50-pound bag that I showed people, that's actually out of Ohio. But by the time I get it, it's not as fresh, even as if I go to the way east side and get potatoes that somebody's just dug out of their farm. So have this thought going on, because you can really, I mean, and just think, if you've got kids, getting your kids involved with this, skip going to the gym. You don't need a gym membership anymore, because gardening's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun work. You can get the whole family involved with this. Go back to that hunter-gatherer, roots that we have. This is how we survived. We were starch growers. Animals was not a predictable food source, so we had to have a predictable food source, whether it was corn, rice, potatoes. Those are the main three that you see across majority of the world. Now, squash and everything at this time of year for us in North America, I know I see a lot of people in different countries on my channel, and stuff like pumpkin and things like that is used year round, it seems, in other countries. Here it's not. Like, you're only going to find pumpkin used from like mid-October through, well, I don't know, depending on marketing and if you're going to Starbucks. But the real food, you're only really going to see that from maybe mid-September through the rest of the year at best. And most of the time, that squash season is over by, around Thanksgiving, which is the last week of November. And the reason I wanted to make this video now is because you can really actually start planning this. You can get into your mind what you want to grow over the winter, but what you can do before that is you can take a plot of land and you can dig up all the grass that's there. And if you've got a bunch of leaves coming into your yard, you can do something called create leaf humus. And what that basically is just desiccated leaves. And the easiest way to do this, you can actually do this yourself. You don't even have to buy this. You just, when the leaves come down, you'll take a lawnmower and you'll put the catch bag on and you go over the leaves with a catch bag, and it just turns it basically into a little bit of grass but leaf humus. And you can mix that in with the soil and then cover the rest of the soil with leaves. Now you're going to have to take that out, at the beginning of the growing season, but you can get it started now. And then over the winter time, you can get your seeds if you want to start a seeds. I actually have a growing rack in the other room. It's filled with boxes right now. Maybe I'll use it this year and I'll show people how I do it. I just don't have that much growing room. If you're like me, you don't have a lot of growing room. Potatoes probably isn't a thing, but you definitely can grow, peppers and tomatoes like I did this year, and cucumbers and onions. And I really failed miserably at taking videos of that. But you can plan this over the winter, things like onions and tomatoes and not cucumbers, but peppers. These are things that you really probably should plant earlier in the year, so say in like March. But this is something that you can have fun with. If you've got younger kids, can you imagine how much fun they would have with this? I know I did. I always loved helping my dad as much as I could. Now, I know that was really his growing was his thing, so he did like to do it on his own. But, he loved having his kids around. So if this is of any interest to you whatsoever, you don't have to take up your whole yard. If I was president, like I said in one of the interviews, I would make grass illegal. I think it's the dumbest thing. Like, why would we, all this land is covered by this useless grass. Now, I know it helps with erosion, but damn, can you imagine if all these areas was like, I deliver at these huge, massive house places that have these huge fields in between houses for aesthetics. Can you imagine if that was a community garden and there was somebody actually running it? Because if there's nobody running it, those things go crazy real quick. But if there's somebody actually running it, can you imagine that? People would actually know each other for once. You know, these huge in suburbia, in the sticks and everything, nobody knows anybody in, you know, anywhere. Can you imagine how much that would change dynamics? Can you imagine if every single one of these people grew a different thing? They only grew that. Like somebody only grew tomatoes, like 30 different variety, and somebody only grew, you know, this, and they all shared it. I mean, can you imagine that? And how much more healthy people would be, and how much less reliant we would be on these assembly lines that are owned by these huge corporations? Anyway, that's my thought. You might not be able to get away from the seeds from these companies, but you could actually get away from buying from these huge corporations. That is my video. Any comments, questions down below? If I did start doing a farming thing or a growing thing, I probably would do like John Kohler and start another channel, because I don't know how much interest that would be. I'm noticing that certain videos don't do well on this channel, and I'm going to start putting them somewhere else. So, yes. Anyways, that is my video today. But, I mean, when I saw that video, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Because I remember my childhood, most of my backyard at the one house when I was growing up, like a good half of the yard was garden. And then there was an herb garden and everything like that. Even if you just had enough room to grow an herb garden, can you imagine how much better your cooking would be if you actually got used to using it? Anyway, like I said, comments, questions down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.